We do not stand still and are developing for you, so we bring to your attention a new voice and a new story.
The instant I realized I'd been deceived wasn't when my father disclosed it to the board, nor when I spotted my brother's self-satisfied grin from across the conference table. Instead, it was 3 weeks prior, when I observed them both exiting the executive lounge, chuckling about a secret I was not privy to. They froze when they saw me. My father's gaze veered away, avoiding mine. Kevin adjusted his tie, a habit he had since his childhood. In that instant, an inner voice warned me. 15 years of my labor, my ideas, and my sacrifices were about to be bestowed upon another. Upon my brother, who had spent more time on golf courses than construction sites. I was correct in my assumption, but they underestimated what I would do next. Jennifer Reynolds, previously the Chief Operating Officer, MI. For 3 months prior, I held that position for Reynolds Construction, a company my grandfather established as a small residential contractor in 1962, which my father expanded into commercial projects across the Pacific Northwest, and under my leadership transformed into a $100 million enterprise with projects spanning 5 states. The memory of the first time Dad brought me to a construction site still resonates. I was 9 years old, lean legs and wide-eyed, marveling at how steel beams moved gracefully through the air like massive matchsticks. A white hard hat was given to me by the foreman, which seemed enormous for my head. My father adjusted it, allowing me to see while he chuckled. "One day, Jenny," he said, "all of this will be yours. If you want it." I wanted it. I yearned for it. By age 16, I was spending summer vacations in the office, learning the intricacies of reading blueprints and deciphering contracts. My peers were frequenting the mall instead. At construction sites, I queried about load-bearing walls and foundation specifications. My senior thesis at Stanford focused on eco-friendly building techniques in metropolitan areas. 2 weeks post-graduation, I found myself at Reynolds Construction, eager to demonstrate my worth. And demonstrate it I did. Not as Richard Reynolds' daughter, but as Jennifer Reynolds, the one who clinched the Miller Tower project that catapulted us onto the national stage. The executive who ventured into green construction when others were still pondering its merits. The chief who navigated the company through the 2008 recession without a single dismissal, while our rivals faltered. For 15 years, I fueled Reynolds Construction's expansion. Everyone recognized it. Our clients, our staff, our competitors. Apparently, everyone except my father. The day of the announcement was routine. As usual, I arrived at our Portland headquarters downtown at 6:30, an hour before most of the executive team. Morning tranquility was my preferred routine, marked by efficiency and solitude. I had been planning to scrutinize the quarterly forecasts once more, jot down points for the approaching board meeting, and conclude the presentation regarding my father's impending retirement announcement and succession nomination. However, Sarah, my assistant, arrived at 8 o'clock, carrying coffee. "Good morning," she greeted, placing the cup on my desk. "Prepared for the main event?" I responded with a smile, arranging my blazer. "As prepared as I can be." Sarah seemed unusually apprehensive, shifting from one foot to another. Over the past decade, I'd never witnessed her this uneasy around me. "What's up?" I inquired. "Probably nothing important," she replied, nervously tucking a hair behind her ear. However, Kevin's assistant was photocopying documents for the board meeting, a presentation distinct from the one we had prepared earlier. I maintained a calm demeanor. "I suspect it's additional materials." "You're welcome for the coffee, Sarah." Subsequently, I found myself immobile as tension mounted in my temples. Lately, Kevin had exhibited an uncommon curiosity towards quarterly figures, questioning points that he typically overlooked during meetings. Moreover, our regular strategy sessions were canceled thrice over the past month. A rarity for him, I glanced at my computer and checked my schedule. The board meeting was set for 2 p.m. in the main conference room. The only item on the agenda was the announcement regarding the successor of Reynolds Construction's CEO. My phone vibrated with a message from Linda, our reliable CFO. "Let's chat prior to the meeting. In your office?" Her gaze was fixed on Portland's skyline from her window, her arms firmly crossed against her chest. "Close the door," she instructed without looking my way. Afterward, I waited patiently in silence. Linda and I joined Reynolds around the same time. She has been an essential ally through various projects, discussions, and corporate struggles we've faced together. "Have you talked to your dad today?" she eventually inquired. "No, not yet. What's up?" She moved, her face serious. "This morning, the board packet for today's meeting was distributed. I just got mine. And?" Linda walked toward her desk and passed me a bound document. The cover read Reynolds Construction Vision 2025, with Kevin's name beneath it as the presenter. I skimmed through it quickly, feeling my chest tighten with each page. Essentially, it was last year's strategic plan with cosmetic alterations and Kevin's name on the cover. There's more, Linda whispered. The succession proposal is in the back. I turned to the final section. There it was, in black and white. The board of directors will consider the recommendation to appoint Kevin Reynolds as CEO, effective immediately. The room seemed to sway slightly. For 15 years, work, sacrifice, and demonstrable results, my father was handing the company over to my brother. This doesn't seem correct, I stated, managing a composure that didn't reflect my inner turmoil. The vote was expected to be mere formality. Richard had already secured commitments from the majority. I closed the folder, my thoughts whirling. Did Kevin inform his team about this morning? He did, very discreetly. The betrayal wasn't just Dad choosing Kevin. It was that everyone knew before me. I was intentionally kept in the dark, as if I were an insignificant part of my own company. What are your plans? Linda inquired. It was a relevant question. What could I do? My father held majority shares. The board respected him enough to comply with his recommendation without hesitation. I had no power, no options. Or did I? I returned the packet to Linda. Thank you for showing me this, Linda called after me as I left. I'm sorry, Jen. You deserved better. I nodded once, at a loss for words, and headed back to my office. 5 hours remained until the board meeting. I spent 5 hours contemplating whether to endure this injustice or confront it. Initially, I went through a gamut of feelings. Shock, pain, rage, disbelief, eventually forcing myself to concentrate. Emotional responses wouldn't alter anything. I needed understanding, a plan, an advantage. Examined Reynolds Construction's financial statements, annual reports, and project histories. Over the last decade, my leadership had significantly contributed to its success. The Pacific Heights development, our major ongoing project, was Kevin's brainchild, yet it was lagging by 3 months and had ballooned $2 million over budget. I scrutinized these figures more closely. There was always an uneasy feeling about the Pacific Heights financial reporting. The estimated profits appeared excessively high for a project encountering numerous obstacles. Compared the financial statements with actual construction records. Discovered a discrepancy, a gap between actual progress and what was reported to the board and investors. My hand stiffened on the keyboard. Was Kevin possibly tampering with the figures? And if he was, did Dad recognize it? I needed more details. I knew exactly who to contact. Michael Donovan had been chasing Reynolds Construction for years. His investment firm focused on construction and real estate companies, with solid foundations but management problems. Companies ready for restructuring. I had declined his approaches numerous times, sticking by the family business. But now, my loyalty was being paid back with deceit. I located his card in my desk drawer and scrutinized it for a while before picking up the phone. Jennifer Reynolds. He answered on the second ring, surprise evident in his tone. This is unforeseen. Michael, I said, maintaining a composed voice despite the chaos within me, I've been contemplating your involvement with Reynolds Construction. Can we meet for lunch tomorrow? A pause. I can adjust my schedule. What seems to be the matter? Let's just say I'm looking at other opportunities. 1 p.m. at Riverside Grill? He agreed, his curiosity palpable in his voice. After hanging up, I carried the burden of what I'd just set into motion. This wasn't merely a call to a potential investor. It was a move that could redefine Reynolds Construction. Was I prepared for such transformation? The alternative seemed like allowing Kevin to control everything, watching it crumble in 2 years. With 500 employees relying on Reynolds Construction for their livelihoods, the thought weighed heavily. I reflected on my grandfather who built this company from scratch with nothing but determination and a pickup truck. I recalled the little girl with the oversized hard hat, trusting her father's promise that it would one day be hers. By the time I walked into the 2 a.m. board meeting, my decision was resolute. The room fell quiet as I entered. The executive team and board members were already gathered around the long mahogany table. At the helm was my father, with Kevin to his right, where I typically sat. I claimed the vacant seat at the opposite end, noticing the furtive glances, the discomfort in some faces, the hidden satisfaction in others. Dad convened the gathering, his voice echoing the authoritative tone honed over 4 decades in business. Thank you all for attending today. Given the effort put into crafting and recounting this tale, subscribing to our channel if you're enjoying it would be greatly appreciated. Now, back to the story. I've chosen to relinquish my position as CEO of Reynolds Construction. He paused, scanning the room. This enterprise has been my life's endeavor, but it's high time for fresh leadership to guide us. I maintained a still facade, revealing nothing. Let him announce it. Let everyone hear it firsthand. Reynolds Construction requires a daring new vision, Dad asserted. An individual who can think creatively, offer novel perspectives. I almost chuckled at that suggestion. Kevin, who had never conceived an idea on his own throughout his life, often mimicking thoughts I had shared, was appointed CEO instantly, a move I made. The room fell quiet as all eyes turned towards me, awaiting my response. With grit, I masked my emotions. Despite feeling a burning inside, Kevin, now donning a designer suit jacket, buttoned it up and said, "I'm honored, Dad. I won't disappoint you." Executives who had worked alongside me for years, observing my devotion, now nodded and smiled, offering congratulations to Kevin. Some avoided eye contact, others gave me empathetic looks. Eventually, my father addressed me. "Jennifer, you will continue as COO, aiding Kevin during his transition." After 15 years of managing daily operations, increasing our market share, and securing projects instrumental in transforming the company, I was asked to assist my brother. As the gathering ended, Linda sent me a glance from across the table, her countenance a blend of pity and annoyance on my behalf. I returned a nearly unnoticeable nod. This wasn't the end. I held back until everyone had left before confronting my father. He was tidying up his papers, prolonging the process, possibly hoping to postpone this discussion. "We need to talk," I said softly. Dad sighed, momentarily appearing older than his 68 years. "Not now, Jennifer. We'll discuss it later. Either after Kevin has adjusted to my office or when he's ruined the company. That will do." His tone hardened. "This decision wasn't made casually. Then enlighten me. Let me comprehend why you would overlook the person who's been managing Reynolds Construction for years." Dad stood up, meeting my gaze squarely. "Kevin requires this chance. He needs to demonstrate his worth." I gaped at him, disbelief sweeping over me. "So, this isn't about what's best for Reynolds Construction? The focus is on Kevin's needs. The company will manage. You'll be there to guide him." "But if I don't?" A question lingered between us. Dad's countenance stiffened. "Is that a threat, Jennifer?" It was a question, not a threat. "What if I don't want to be Kevin's safety net for his potential setbacks?" "Then you're not the daughter I believed you were," he said softly. "Families support each other. Remember that." I chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Enlighten me on how this duty only seems to apply in one direction." I turned to go, then paused by the door. "You know, Dad, for years, you've told me that Reynolds Construction stands for excellence, for earning your place, for delivering results." I faced him again. "So it seems, our conversation today has proven that a lie." The pain that flickered across his face gave me no joy. This wasn't about causing him pain. It was about preserving what I helped create. In my office, I closed the door and let out a breath. Only then did I allow myself to feel. Slight tremors gripped my fingers as they clutched the desk edge. "Inhale, Jennifer. Focus." My phone vibrated with a calendar reminder. Reynolds Construction CEO succession announcement was pending. The corporate-wide email had already been circulated. By tomorrow morning, everyone would be aware. I initiated an email to Michael Donovan, confirming our lunch and attaching some initial data about Reynolds Construction's financials, emphasizing the troubling trends detected in the Pacific Heights project. As I dispatched the message, a peculiar tranquility enveloped me. The journey ahead promised challenges, perhaps even ruptures. Several relationships might be beyond repair, but I hadn't spent 15 years to watch everything I'd cultivated be bestowed upon someone who didn't deserve it. Reynolds Construction deserved more. I deserved more, and I was about to demonstrate it. The following day, I arrived at Riverside Grill 15 minutes ahead of time, asking for a secluded booth in the corner. The high-end eatery was tastefully luxurious rather than showy, a convenient setting for discreet business talks over pricey steaks and martinis. I opted for sparkling water and scrutinized the menu absent-mindedly, my thoughts preoccupied with the strategy I'd been refining until 3 a.m. At exactly 1:00 p.m., Michael Donovan arrived. He was tall, around mid-50s, sporting salt and pepper hair, and exuding the self-assured strides of someone accustomed to achieving his goals. His company, Donovan Capital Partners, was renowned for discovering underappreciated construction and real estate firms, reorganizing them, and either selling them at a profit or incorporating them into their expanding collection. He recognized me and strode towards me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Instead, his eyes scanned critically, calculating, searching for vulnerabilities or chances, perhaps even both. Jennifer, he said, settling into the booth opposite me, this is unexpectedly delightful. You seem to have been unreachable for quite some time, I noticed. Times evolve, as do conditions. A waiter arrived to take your drink order, a neat scotch, and vanished just as promptly. I learned about the announcement, he mentioned, observing me intently. Kevin is now CEO. That must have come as a surprise. I maintained a composed facial expression. Information travels swiftly in our field after all. He reclined as his drink was delivered. I've known your father for 2 decades. This move doesn't appear to be one he'd make impulsively. I don't question decisions that aren't mine, I responded, the rehearsed phrase sliding off my tongue despite its bitterness. Michael smiled. And yet, we find ourselves here. Here we are, I repeated, unfolding the portfolio I had brought along. I presume your interest in Reynolds Construction remains. That hinges on what's being presented. I pushed a 1-page summary towards you. Here are our latest financial reports, revenue details, project portfolios, growth statistics, and projections. He scrutinized the page before returning his gaze to me. These figures I've seen before, and they are indeed impressive. However, they don't clarify why there's now an inclination towards external funding for Reynolds Construction. After taking a sip of water, I chose my next words thoughtfully. Reynolds Construction stands at a crucial juncture. Over the past decade, we've experienced substantial growth. But to maintain this pace, we require capital for expansion, and strategic partnerships make logical sense. He echoed my words, a hint of amusement in his expression. Strategic partnerships, he said. Is that what we are discussing here, at least for now? The server returned to take our lunch orders. I opted for salmon, while Michael chose the ribeye, rare. When we were left alone again, he leaned forward. Let's bypass the corporate jargon, Jennifer. For years, you've turned down my proposals because Reynolds is a family business. Now that your brother has been appointed CEO instead of you seem open to external investment. His gaze locked with mine. What's the true situation? I thought about diverting, but Michael Donovan's reputation didn't stem from being deceived. Direct honesty might be more advantageous in this case. Reynolds Construction is encountering difficulties that aren't evident in these figures, I stated, pointing at the financial summary. Our key project, Pacific Heights, is significantly delayed and over budget. The reporting on it has been unconventional. His attention clearly intensified. Just how unconventional? Unconventional enough that if the actual figures were disclosed to investors or creditors, we'd face significant issues. Michael leaned back, absorbing this. Does your father aware of this? I'm unsure about his knowledge. Kevin has been managing Pacific Heights directly, bypassing standard financial procedures and reporting only to Dad. And the reason for informing me is, I looked him squarely in the eyes, because Reynolds Construction is worth preserving. It's a robust company with remarkable projects and talented personnel. However, under its current management, I harbor doubts about its longevity. Is it your suggestion that Donovan Capital takes over, streamlines operations, and incidentally appoints you as CEO? His demeanor was dubious, yet not contemptuous. I seek a partnership that is advantageous for all parties. My family receives the necessary capital infusion to restore stability. Your company obtains a share in a firm with substantial growth prospects. The workforce retains their positions. The only modification would be installing competent leadership. Michael contemplated his scotch. And why do you presume your father or brother would approve of this proposal? This was the crucial point, the leverage I had foreseen during my late-night deliberations. Because the opposite scenario is far worse, I replied softly. The accounting discrepancies in Pacific Heights are not simply poor business practices. They could potentially be viewed as fraudulent. If these details were to surface or reach the SEC, I left the implication hanging for both of us. Michael's countenance remained unaltered, yet a shift occurred in his gaze as if he was adjusting internal calculations. What you're stating is more of an allegation, Jennifer, against your own kin. It's not an accusation. Rather, I unearthed this information yesterday, and I'm currently attempting to handle it discreetly through a resolution that safeguards the company and everyone connected with it. Our meal arrived, interrupting our discourse briefly. My appetite waned, but I continued to eat, maintaining an illusion of normality. Eventually, Michael responded, I find this intriguing. So, what's your proposition? He inquired. Donovan Capital is planning to invest $30 million for a 30% share in Reynolds Construction. This investment hinges on changes in management structure, such as reorganizing the board with the ability to select the CEO based on capabilities and accomplishments, rather than familial ties. Do you think this board would opt for you? I countered. I believe they would choose the most competent individual, I clarified. If it's not me, I will acquiesce. Michael sliced into his steak, pondering the statement. However, it won't be Kevin. He mused. You realize that this alternative would reduce your family's influence over the company. Your father might perceive this as treachery. The words felt like a slap, even from him. My father was the first to betray me, putting nepotism before the company's interests. Family businesses are intricate, Michael conceded, emotions blurring judgment. That's why impartial management is crucial. We spent our lunch discussing specifics, valuation techniques, board makeup, timing, and conditions. Michael was meticulous, scrutinizing potential flaws in my plan and finding very few. By dessert, he was fully invested, the predatory glint replaced by genuine curiosity. I'll need to fact-check your Pacific Heights information, he stated as we prepared to depart. Naturally, I'd expect discretion, nothing less. I gave him a USB drive. Comparison is made between the authentic project reports and financial disclosures for thorough investigation. The drive was taken. This is a daring step, Jennifer. Are you ready for the potential outcomes? I pondered over my father's expression when he appointed Kevin as CEO, the years of being undervalued despite surpassing everyone else. The lives of employees whose sustenance relied on capable guidance were at stake. Doing nothing would be more detrimental, I responded. Michael acknowledged this and promised a swift review. As we departed from the restaurant, he inquired further. Why me? You could have handed this to numerous investment firms. The question left me bewildered. Yet the response was straightforward. Because you comprehend construction. You recognize the distinction between a company with inherent issues and one with leadership concerns. And because you've been striving for a stake in, for years, I smirked subtly. I anticipated your swift actions. He chuckled, marking the first genuine response I'd observed from him. Clever, I'll get in touch. I observed as he strolled to his vehicle, the burden of my recent actions descending upon me. Now, there was no going back. I had essentially declared war on my own family, all in an effort to preserve what they seemed intent on destroying. My phone vibrated with a message from Linda. Kevin is convening an executive meeting tomorrow morning. You must attend. Things are progressing rapidly, I responded. I'm moving just as fast. The atmosphere in Reynolds Construction felt altered upon my arrival the next day. Silent exchanges ceased as I passed by. Eyes glanced away. Rumors of Kevin's promotion had spread throughout the company, and with it, conjecture about my future. I nodded, acknowledging familiar faces while maintaining a composed facade that concealed the turmoil within. My assistant Sarah greeted me at my office door, holding coffee and expressing worry in her eyes. In 30 minutes is our executive meeting, she informed me upon entering. We're gathering in conference room A. Thanks. I accepted the coffee while noticing additional files on my desk. What are these? It appears Kevin sent them over for our meeting. He requested updates on all ongoing projects. Skimming through the folders, I recognized information I was deeply familiar with, presented in a disorganized manner, suggesting an individual with limited insight into our processes had compiled it. So, where is Kevin currently? In his father's office? Or rather, his own office now. Sarah shifted uneasily. There are whispers. About what? Regarding your possible departure. People are anxious. I placed the files aside. I'm not planning to depart, Sarah. Not just yet, at least. Her countenance eased somewhat. That's reassuring. You see, this morning Kevin posed basic questions about project workflows that you could effortlessly answer while asleep. This wasn't surprising, as he has never demonstrated interest in the core operations of our business, despite his familial connection to it. His specialty was in networking, impressing clients, and claiming credit for others' tasks, especially mine. I spent the next 20 minutes examining folders, jotting down remarks wherever inconsistencies or explanations were needed. If Kevin aspired to be CEO, I would make sure he grasped the full picture. Conference room A was already bustling when I got there. The executive team, department chiefs, project leaders, and directors gathered around the huge table, with Kevin at the head, in my father's customary seat. My father himself was noticeably absent. Upon seeing me enter, a hint of doubt flashed across Kevin's face before he replaced it with a smile. Jennifer, it's great you could make it. I chose to sit near the center of the table instead of my regular spot beside the CEO. The symbolic separation wasn't lost on anyone present. I wouldn't have missed it, I responded calmly. Kevin swallowed, adjusting. His tie twitched nervously as he spoke. Since you're all aware, I've assumed the CEO role after my father's retirement. This gathering is intended to familiarize myself with significant projects and initiatives. For the ensuing hour, I witnessed Kevin struggle during an executive review, asking repetitive questions, failing to comprehend fundamental project management principles, and missing the fiscal consequences of decisions that are currently in progress. The team displayed growing apprehension, some casting furtive glances my way. Upon reaching the Pacific Heights development, I sat up straighter. Pacific Heights is our showcase project, he declared confidently, a $65 million mixed-use development destined to redefine urban living in Portland. We anticipate a 22% profit margin upon completion. Linda, our CFO, squirmed uneasily. To be precise, the recent forecasts suggest approximately 15%, provided we resolve foundation issues before the end of the month. Kevin furrowed his brow. The data in my reports indicates the project is 3 months delayed and $4.2 million over budget. I responded, maintaining a composed tone. The usual financial analysis indicates this discrepancy. The projected profit margin could even drop if there are further delays. The room fell quiet. Kevin's complexion changed. That can't be correct, he argued stubbornly. My father and I went over the figures last week. I countered, if that's the case, you looked at different numbers than what were presented to our creditors and shareholders, which casts doubt on our financial transparency practices. The unspoken implication was palpable. Several executives shared worried looks. Financial inconsistencies aren't just bad business, they could be illegal. Kevin's jaw clenched. We can discuss this matter privately, Jennifer. Why? He added. This is a gathering to evaluate the project status. I'm checking on the current state of our biggest venture. You're aware of Pacific Heights, aren't you? I mentioned the stop work order issued yesterday because of inadequate structural engineering documents and the subcontractor payment issues that have 3 vendors contemplating withdrawing their crews. These matters had been included in the site manager's update this morning. Kevin seemed taken aback. Evidently, these details didn't find their way into his prepared reports. I'll handle those concerns straight away, he said, trying to regain command of the meeting. Agreed, I acknowledged. The team requires specific guidance on the next steps, particularly concerning the extra $2 million necessary for resolving foundation issues. The upper management was now visibly attentive, the air tense. Kevin was being revealed as potentially ignorant about the project he'd been touting to boost his reputation. He swiftly diverted the discussion. Let's discuss the Westlake contract instead. The rest of the meeting continued with a repetitive structure. Kevin portrayed an overly optimistic but incorrect perspective, which was corrected by myself or another executive with real facts, leading to Kevin becoming more defensive. By the end, it became evident to everyone present that the new CEO was struggling to keep up. As the meeting ended, Kevin requested for me to stay behind. Once everyone had left, his professional demeanor dissolved. What on earth was that? He exclaimed. That was an accurate project evaluation, I responded. Something you should get accustomed to if you're to be CEO. You intentionally misled me in front of the entire executive team. I provided correct information. There's a distinction, I added. Kevin paced, running his hand through his neatly styled hair. Listen, I understand your frustration about Dad's decision. However, this isn't about Dad's decision. This is about you presenting falsehoods as facts. Pacific Heights is in dire straits, Kevin. His suspicion grew as you stopped pacing. Are you insinuating that our meetings with Michael Donovan are meant to undermine me? You confirmed he knew about the lunches. Intriguing. You explained, I met with Michael to explore investment possibilities. Reynolds' construction requires capital to tackle problems like Pacific Heights. We don't need additional investments. We're managing fine. You challenged his assessment, are we really doing fine? Pointing out issues like a major project losing money, financial reports not aligning with reality, and a CEO seemingly unaware of operational difficulties. Kevin stiffened. Take care, Jennifer. Your position as COO is at my discretion. You chuckled disbelievingly. Is that a threat? You'd fire the person who understands how this company operates? He hesitated but replied, if necessary. Gathering your documents, you prepared to leave. If Dad isn't prepared to return from retirement to manage the chaos you'd cause, you won't last a month without me. You can't respond? Michael Donovan is calling. I stepped out of the conference room and took the call in my office. Jennifer. Michael was all business. My team found substantial inconsistencies between internal reports and what's shown to investors in Pacific Heights. Indeed, you were correct. What's next? Our team is keen on proceeding. They've drafted a term sheet for the investment we discussed earlier. Can we meet tomorrow morning? My pulse quickened. Yes, at your office or a neutral location. My office would offer more confidentiality. 9 a.m. it is. I ended the call, then saw a message from Linda. Your sibling abruptly entered your father's residence. Tension was brewing. I concur, the situation needed resolution. The rest of the day was spent gathering more evidence for my stance and delving into the company bylaws concerning ownership modifications and board restructuring. By nightfall, I had a thorough grasp of every aspect of what I was planning to undertake. My phone remained uncannily quiet throughout the day. No calls or messages from Dad or your brother. The peace before the conflict. At home, I poured a glass of wine and stood near my apartment window, gazing at Portland's skyline, where several buildings were once Reynolds construction projects. Physical reminders of what we had accomplished, what I had constructed. My doorbell chimed at 8:30 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing in the hallway, visibly his age of 68. Without a word, I opened the door and allowed him entry. Jennifer, he said, his voice raw with emotion or exhaustion or a blend of both. Dad, a drink? Something stronger if available. I provided him with whiskey, and we settled in my living room, the quietness expanding like a fissure between us. Kevin informed me you had a meeting with Donovan. He eventually admitted, yes. Why? I scrutinized him. This man I've spent my life striving to impress, to make proud. Because someone needs to rescue Reynolds Construction from your error. He winced. That's unjust? Is it? You transferred the company to someone who has tampered with financial records, misrepresented project status, and is clueless about running a construction business. How can that be unfair? Dad placed down his glass. Kevin presented ambitious predictions for Pacific Heights. That's not out of the ordinary in our line of work. These aren't ambitious projections, Dad. They're falsifications. The project is months delayed and millions over budget. The reports Kevin showed you hold no resemblance to reality. Did you share this information with an external investor? A hint of irritation crept into his tone. You're discussing our family business? Instead, I approached someone capable of providing assistance. Donovan Capital is prepared to inject $30 million into Reynolds Construction. This injection would secure Pacific Heights and finance the expansion we've long envisioned. His gaze hardened. What's the catch? Proposed governance adjustments? A reorganized board with the authority to select the CEO based on merit rather than family relations. Realization dawned on his face. So that's it. Unable to accept my decision, you're orchestrating a corporate takeover. I'm safeguarding the company you've dedicated your life to, I retorted. A company you seem ready to forfeit due to Kevin's ego. You don't comprehend? Then help me comprehend. My facade finally faltered. Help me understand. Why you would overlook someone who has demonstrated her worth for 15 years in favor of someone who hasn't completed a single successful project yet. Father stood mirroring Kevin's earlier actions, and suddenly the family resemblance was stark. Kevin requires this opportunity, Jennifer. You've always been robust, efficient. You'll manage regardless of what transpires. Those words stung like a blow. So I'm being penalized for my proficiency? For working diligently, achieving success? It's not retribution, it's sexism, Father. Straightforward and undeniable. If Kevin were your son and I your daughter, we wouldn't be discussing this. He ceased his pacing, genuine astonishment etched on his face. That isn't accurate. This isn't based on gender, is it? Kevin deserves this chance. You'll handle whatever comes next just fine. Father retreated into his chair. You're misinterpreting my words. I'm grasping their true meaning for the first time. I leaned forward. Here's what will transpire tomorrow. I have a meeting with Michael Donovan to seal the investment terms. The agreement will involve stipulations concerning board structure and administration. When the board votes for the CEO position, it will be determined by qualifications and performance, not familial ties. He won't accept it, he said. But his tone was uncertain. You don't have a choice. The other option is letting Kevin manage the company into ruin, potentially facing SEC investigations for financial misstatement. Is that the inheritance you desire? He gazed at me. This father who never truly understood me. Would you do this? Gamble everything we've established on a power move? I didn't put the company at risk, I asserted softly. You did when you chose Kevin. After finishing his drink in one gulp, he left. I had thought I knew you better than this, Jennifer. Strange, I thought the same about you. After he departed, I remained alone in my apartment, the impending consequences looming overhead. Tomorrow will alter everything. Family, job at Reynolds Construction, future. No turning back. I remembered the little girl in the hard hat, trusting her father's promise that it would all belong to her one day. I remembered the woman who had consistently demonstrated her worth yet was often ignored due to old-fashioned notions of who deserved power and who didn't. No more, I murmured to the silent room. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. It was a message from Robert Chen, the developer for Pacific Heights. Heard you're making moves. Let's talk. I have information that could be beneficial. Chen had always been Kevin's contact, deliberately kept apart from me, despite my COO position. What information did he possess that would benefit me now? I replied, where and when? His response was swift. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., coffee shop on 4th and Pine, an hour before my meeting with Michael. It fits well. I'll be there, I texted back. Whatever Chen had to offer could prove beneficial, considering the intricate chess match I was engaged in. I couldn't afford to miss any potential edge. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and attempted to sleep, thoughts whirling about possibilities, tactics, and my father's disapproving tone. The following day promised significant transformation. The morning broke gray and damp, fitting the Portland weather that mirrored my mood. I chose a charcoal suit with a deep blue blouse for attire, projecting a balanced mix of professionalism and authority without appearing overly aggressive. The impression I created today would nearly equal the importance of the words I'd speak. A small, upscale coffee shop on 4th and Pine was my destination, frequented by professionals in business. Arriving 10 minutes early, I ordered a cappuccino and chose a table in the corner, with a view of both the entrance and the street. At exactly 8 a.m., Robert Chen arrived, scanning the room before recognizing me. A man around 30 greeted me, flashing an expensive watch. He introduced himself as Jennifer Reynolds, and we were meeting face-to-face for the first time. Chen had information he wanted to share, but not before some casual chat. He had another appointment soon, so he wanted to get straight to business. Chen inquired about my intention to secure investment from Donovan Capital, expressing curiosity given the situation. He questioned what circumstances I was referring to, bringing up discrepancies in Pacific Heights reporting and the promotion of my brother, whose qualifications were questionable. I maintained a neutral expression. Chen further mentioned that Kevin Reynolds had pressured me for months to compromise on Pacific Heights projects, suggesting cheaper materials, reduced safety measures, and expedited timelines without proper engineering reviews. This concerned him because this situation is worse than anticipated, involving not just financial deceit but also risky construction methods. Do you have records for these requests? Chen replied with a smile. Indeed, I record everything, particularly when dealing with clients who might turn problematic. Why are you bringing this up now? He answered plainly, self-preservation. The structural problems we're facing aren't accidental. They stem directly from complying with your brother's request to cut costs. Once these issues become public knowledge, and they will, I don't wish to be made the fall guy. The server brought Chen his espresso. He sipped it while looking at me over the rim of the cup. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Chen? He retrieved a thumb drive from his jacket. Emails, text messages, meeting records, everything detailing your brother's actions causing issues at Pacific Heights, such as his directives to deceive the board and investors about the project's status. I looked at the small gadget pushed towards me on the table. This could be damning. Not merely incompetence, but deliberate deceit. Why are you telling me this instead of going straight to the board or my father? Chen's expression grew stern. Your father has made it clear he supports Kevin over facts. As for the board, I'm a contractor, Ms. Reynolds. My career relies on industry connections. Being perceived as a whistleblower wouldn't benefit me in the long run. However, I'm providing you with data that can help you make wise decisions about the future of Reynolds Construction. He shrugged. How you utilize this information is your concern. Various documents, including emails, texts, and meeting recordings, detail your brother's part in causing problems at Pacific Heights, such as instructing to falsify the project's status to the board and investors. I glanced at the small device placed on the table. This could be highly incriminating, suggesting not only incompetence, but intentional deceit. Why did you tell me this instead of informing the board or my father? Chen's face hardened a bit. My father has made it clear he supports Kevin regardless of the facts. As for the board, I'm a contractor, Ms. Reynolds. My career relies on professional connections in this field. Being perceived as a whistleblower wouldn't be beneficial to me long term. Nevertheless, I'm giving you information that can aid you in making informed decisions about the future of Reynolds Construction. He shrugged. How you choose to use this information is up to you. I grasped the USB drive, considering its consequences in my hand. What do you want in exchange for it? I requested continued contracts with Reynolds Construction, irrespective of who takes charge, and accountability for Pacific Heights issues being traced back to Kevin's decisions rather than my company's actions when they become public. Fair conditions given the circumstances. If the data on this USB drive is as critical as you claim, and if it can be verified, I don't see why those terms would be an issue. Chen appeared content. Everything is verifiable. Your IT department can confirm the email metadata. The texts provide their own evidence. I put the USB drive in my pocket, intending to review it immediately. Before I left, Chen added something more. The structural problems at Pacific Heights are more severe than anyone has openly admitted. Without prompt action, we're not just facing budget overruns, but potential safety hazards as well. This halted me in my tracks. How serious? It's troubling that I've discreetly told my team to compile every detail in case of future lawsuits. His countenance was somber. The foundation won't bear the structure's entire weight as presently planned. Substantial repairs are necessary, potentially necessitating a total overhaul of certain components. Why wasn't this issue highlighted before? It was hidden in reports your brother compiled. Chen finished his espresso. Look on the drive. Everything is there. I left the coffee shop with my thoughts whirling. If Chen's assertions are valid, the predicament is much more severe than simple financial mismanagement. Pacific Heights could pose a public safety hazard, a potential disaster associated with Reynolds construction. My meeting with Michael Donovan assumed new importance. This wasn't simply about rectifying a succession mishap anymore. It was about averting a catastrophe. Donovan Capital occupies the uppermost 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper. The offices characterized by their contemporary elegance and views of the Willamette River. My assistant led me straight to Michael's private conference room, where he was joined by Helen Morris, their legal counsel in her 40s, and James Patterson, their chief financial analyst. Jennifer, Michael greeted me. Thanks for coming. Can I get you some coffee? No, thank you. I placed my portfolio on the table. Let's dive right in. We've drafted a term sheet based on our discussions. Helen passed a document across the table. I glanced at the main points. $30 million investment for a 30% share, 2 board seats for Donovan Capital, restructuring of governance that necessitates the CEO's approval by a supermajority of the board. This matches what we agreed upon, I confirmed. There's one extra term, Michael added. Regarding Pacific Heights, we necessitate a thorough independent evaluation of all Reynolds construction ventures and financials prior to finalizing the deal. I agreed, stating it's not only reasonable but essential. In my possession is a newly acquired data about Pacific Heights that heightens the urgency of this matter. I shared the information received from Chen, observing a shift in their expressions from casual interest to genuine worry. If these claims are valid, Helen remarked, we could be facing liabilities extending far beyond financial discrepancies. I acknowledge this. I stress the need for prompt investment as Reynolds construction requires both financial resources and governance modifications to effectively tackle these issues. After connecting the thumb drive I provided, we spent an hour examining its contents, which proved incriminating. Emails from Kevin insisting on cost reductions despite engineering cautions, texts telling Chen to devise a solution. Discussions about structural issues led to the damaging revelation of a conversation where Kevin told the finance team to manipulate numbers for the board presentation. This is more serious than we thought, Michael admitted, shutting his laptop. Your brother has created a substantial risk for Reynolds construction. So the management changes are indispensable, I stressed. Reynolds requires leadership that can tackle these problems honestly and efficiently. Agreed, Helen concurred. However, there's an urgent matter. If the structural issues at Pacific Heights are as severe as Chen suggests, there might be legal duties to disclose this information to regulatory bodies. She was correct. Construction flaws potentially impacting public safety couldn't be concealed as a private internal affair. I get it, I responded. After the investment is confirmed and leadership modifications are carried out, I will prioritize complete transparency with regulatory bodies as my initial action. Michael scrutinized me. Aren't you aware of the potential implications for your family relationships, especially with your brother? Yes, I am. The burden of it fell on me, but Reynolds Construction employs more than 500 people. Their livelihoods and safety are more crucial than familial dynamics. Well said. Michael looked at his coworkers. Let's reconsider the timeline. How swiftly can we finalize this agreement? If Miss Reynolds manages to get her father's signature as a majority shareholder, we could finalize within a week, Helen suggested. That was the hurdle. Dad had made his stance clear last night. Securing his agreement for this deal would demand leverage I wasn't confident I possessed, even with Chen's evidence. I'll need some time to present this information to my father, I stated. The impact might be essential for his collaboration. Michael nodded in agreement. We'll complete the paperwork today. Concentrate on obtaining your father's consent. As the meeting came to an end, Michael escorted me to the elevator. When we were alone, he whispered, Jennifer, are you completely sure about this choice? There's no turning back once done. I thought of the years I invested in building my reputation, the prize that was taken away, and the real peril Kevin's incompetence has created. I affirmed, I am certain. The world needs better leadership than it currently possesses. I continued, the employees deserve better. The clients deserve better. And you deserve the position you've earned, he added unexpectedly, catching me off guard. This isn't just about you. Yes, he conceded. But it's not unjust to acknowledge that justice is a factor in this decision. The elevator arrived, and I stepped inside, turning to face him. I'll contact you after I speak with my father. Good fortune, he said, as the doors shut. I knew I'd require it. Immediately, I navigated to my father's residence from Donovan Capital offices, carrying the term sheet and Chen's thumb drive safely. The road was familiar, a tree-lined street in Portland's West Hills that had remained unchanged since always, mirroring my father's traditional views. The house, a modernist architectural marvel commissioned by my parents 2 decades ago, stood as it always did. Sleek lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and organic materials harmonizing with the forested environment. My father had supervised the construction himself, one of the projects that elevated Reynolds construction beyond mere contractors. An unfamiliar car occupied the circular driveway, likely Kevin's latest luxury acquisition, indicating he was present already. This added a layer of complexity, but did not alter my strategy. The housekeeper welcomed me with a friendly grin, informing me that Mr. was already indoors. Reynolds and Kevin were in the study. I acknowledged with a nod and navigated through the grand hall past the living room where family photos detailed our milestones, including my graduation, Kevin starting his first job, and Mom and Dad celebrating their 30th anniversary. The idyllic family story, meticulously presented, voices emanated from the study, specifically Kevin's. As Dad's voice rose in agitation, a soothing tone attempting to calm him, I halted outside the door, eavesdropping. She's undermining me, Kevin was asserting, meeting with Donovan, challenging my decisions in front of the entire executive team. She's not just upset, Dad. She's actively sabotaging me. Jennifer has always been passionate about the business, Dad countered. Let her find her footing. Time? She's meeting with corporate raiders. What do you think she's telling them about the company, about me? I decided to intrude at that instant, barging in without a knock. Both men looked up abruptly, Kevin's complexion reddening upon seeing me. I'm telling them the truth, I stated calmly. Dad rose from his chair, showing a blend of astonishment and apprehension on his face. I hadn't realized you were coming, he said. Apparently, I picked the right moment, I added, setting my portfolio on his desk's edge. Kevin shot me a hostile glance. Is Eve dropping some news now? I retorted. It's hard to avoid when you're shouting. Turning to Dad, I said, I attended 2 meetings this morning, and it seems they were quite significant. If your conversation revolves around Donovan Capital, then yes, that's part of it. However, it also pertains to Robert Chen. Kevin's face subtly changed, initially surprise, followed by a barely concealed alarm. Fascinating, Dad remarked. You're referring to the Pacific Heights developer? He furrowed his brow. What about him? I pulled out a thumb drive belonging to Chen from my portfolio and placed it on the desk with care. Chen had shared some enlightening details regarding the Pacific Heights project, including instructions he received from Kevin concerning materials, safety protocols, and financial reporting. Kevin swiftly declared, that's sensitive business information. However, I countered, stating that he had every right given the gravity of the instructions and their potential legal consequences. Dad, observing our exchange, questioned, what's going on here? It has been Kevin who instructed Chen to compromise the structural aspects of Pacific Heights, disregarding engineering warnings about safety issues. Moreover, he directed the financial team to falsify the project's status for the board and investors. In a calm tone, I presented the facts. All these actions were meticulously documented in emails, text messages, and recorded conversations, all of which are present on this drive. Kevin, standing up abruptly, retorted, that's a lie. Chen is merely trying to shift blame onto me for his own incompetence. I then proposed, shall we go over the evidence together? Indicating towards Dad's computer. The texts or meetings where engineering issues were supposed to be addressed discreetly or the finance team was advised to alter figures for board presentations? These actions are troubling you, Kevin? Kevin denied it vehemently, accusing Chen of twisting old discussions and misconstruing context. I stated that manipulating financial information for investors can only have one interpretation: fraud. Dad appeared shaken by this revelation, visibly aging in his chair. I connected a USB drive to his computer, displaying a series of incriminating emails. Both Dad and Kevin remained silent as he read through the messages, his countenance growing more somber with each disclosure. Kevin shifted between defending himself and attacking Chen's intentions. Ultimately, Dad leaned back, taking off his reading glasses to rub his nose bridge. "Kevin, why?" he questioned, the straightforward inquiry lingering. Kevin ceased his pacing. The project demanded progression. There were delays, financial excesses. "If we disclose the true figures, the board may have withdrawn funding." "So you misled," Dad stated directly. "You deceived me, the board, our investors," Kevin retorted. His voice intensified again. I interjected, stating that every developer makes such calls, not about structural safety, especially when lives were not in danger. Dad stared at me, his countenance hardening. "And your solution to this? Is Donovan Capital selling a portion of our family company to outsiders?" I presented the term sheet next to the computer. Kevin was prepared to invest $30 million for a 30% stake. The city capital will effectively resolve Pacific Heights concerns and finance our growth initiatives. The contract involves modifications in governance, such as reorganizing the board to select the CEO based on skills, not familial bias. Kevin chuckled cynically. "Ah, so this is about Dad granting the position he gave me," I retorted. "This is about averting Reynolds Construction from becoming a warning tale in the sector, a family firm brought down by nepotism and incompetence." "That's enough," both of you said, Dad sternly. I directly stated 30% is a considerable reduction in our family's control. It's superior to bankruptcy, or even more so, accountability for structural flaws that could harm people. Dad moved towards the window, gazing at the well-kept gardens once lovingly tended by my mother. The quiet lingered as Kevin and I awaited his decision, resembling children summoned for reprimand. "The Pacific Heights matters call for swift resolution," he eventually stated, "regardless of how we handle Donovan's situation." "Agreed," I responded, "but to prevent recurrence, both the financial adjustments and management changes are essential." Dad looked at us again. "What if I refuse? Then, Jennifer, you would take this information to the board, to regulators." The question was not accusatory, but rather resigned, as if he already knew the answer. "I hope it won't come to that," I whispered gently. "But Reynolds Construction is more than just a job title for any one of us. It provides employment for hundreds and builds structures used daily by thousands. Its integrity holds greater importance than personal family affairs." Kevin sighed disapprovingly. "You'd risk damaging our family over a title." "This isn't about a title," I retorted, finally losing my cool. "This is about accountability, concerning earning a position through effort and achievement, rather than inheritance, a concept you've never grasped, both of you." Pause. Dad raised his hand. "I require time to reflect on this, and to examine Chen's claims individually." I acknowledged with a nod. "The contract is valid for 72 hours. After that, Donovan might reconsider due to the potential risks involved." Dad looked at me, displaying an emotion I couldn't decipher. Disappointment, admiration, submission, or a blend of all. "You've always been tactical, Jennifer, relentless." He pointed toward the contract and USB drive. "Keep these with me. I'll contact you tomorrow with my decision." It wasn't the swift approval I expected, but it was preferable to an outright refusal. I collected my portfolio and prepared to depart. "Give careful thought, Dad," I said as I exited. "This isn't merely about who heads Reynolds Construction. It's about shaping the kind of company it will become in the future." Kevin likely stayed put as I left. Devising his counterplan, let him attempt it. The facts were speaking loudly now. The following dawn was bright and frosty, revealing Portland's skyline distinctly against a scarce cloud cover. Arriving at the office early as customary, I utilized the tranquil hours to ready for whatever Dad's decision might be regarding the Donovan investment. If he agreed, we would require a transition plan. If he rejected, I had contingencies in place for that eventuality. Linda found me examining project reports at my desk, an untouched cold coffee by my side. "You appear exhausted," she noted, shutting my office door after her. "Not too much," I conceded. Dad is pondering the Donovan proposal and re-examining Kevin's mishandling of Pacific Heights. Linda's eyebrows arched. "That explains why Kevin's office is empty this morning. What's your next step?" "It hinges on Dad's decision," I replied, rubbing my temples. "If he approves, we need a transition strategy. If not, I have alternative plans in place." How has the team responded following yesterday's executive meeting? They appear worried. Linda sat opposite me. The revelation of Kevin's inadequate understanding of fundamental operations left everyone questioning. The project managers have been approaching me instead of you or your father with their concerns. Regarding Pacific Heights, that's why I'm here. A fresh assessment from the structural engineers was submitted this morning. It seems the situation is more critical than anticipated, and they suggest halting work until foundation issues are resolved thoroughly. Reading through the report caused my stomach to knot at phrases like potential catastrophic failure and significant safety risk. Has Kevin been informed about this? Linda nodded negative. The report was sent directly to me. I haven't disclosed it yet. If it had gone to Kevin first, there's a chance it might have disappeared conveniently. I ordered copies made. One should be sent to your father promptly. Smart move, keeping it from Kevin initially. Forward the document to the legal department. Make sure the original is kept safely. As for Kevin, send it to him only after others have received their copies, accompanied by a note stating that the engineering team has prepared recommendations for remediation. Regarding the board, let's handle that matter later. Let's first observe how Dad responds to the Donovan offer. Linda understood the strategy. The situation becomes more complex. A text arrives from an unknown number, a Channel 8 business reporter asking questions about Pacific Heights delays, claiming they received an anonymous tip about structural issues. How should we respond? PR. My heart raced. Someone has already leaked the information to the media. Could it be Chen covering his bases? Or maybe Kevin trying to get ahead of the story? Or another party altogether? I shared this text with Linda. This development adds a layer of complexity. She read it, frowning. We need to take control of the situation. A forward-looking declaration concerning regular structure assessments would be preferable to giving the impression of concealing issues. Let PR devise a communication that acknowledges the review without verifying particular concerns. Highlight our dedication to maintaining safety and quality standards. After glancing at the clock, I recognized I needed to phone my dad. This altered the schedule. Following Linda's departure, I phoned my father's cell phone. He picked up on the third ring, sounding tired. Jennifer, I was moments away from calling you. The structural engineers report arrived this morning. It supports Chen's assertions about foundation issues. They suggest a comprehensive halt to work. Suddenly, Channel 8 is inquiring about structural difficulties at Pacific Heights. Someone must have informed them. Was that you? The question hurt, but I understood why he would ask. I won't profit from revealing this before we have a solution. Kevin shares the same viewpoint. Regardless of who disclosed it, we must tackle both the engineering issues and potential PR predicament urgently. The Donovan investment would supply the funds necessary for adequate resolution. After examining emails and reports all night, he stated gravely, Kevin acted rashly, imprudently, yet bringing in external investors seems to be our best course of action. I concurred. Dad, this isn't merely a matter of who's in control anymore. Pacific Heights has real structural problems that may impact public safety. We require the funds and governance changes to handle this effectively. There was silence again, and I could almost picture him in his study, contemplating decades-old traditions versus harsh financial and safety facts. Very well, he eventually said. I'll endorse the contract agreement, but certain adjustments are necessary. A wave of relief and caution swept over me. What alterations? Primarily, I wish to have a right of first refusal if Donovan chooses to dispose of their ownership share. It should be an option for the family to repurchase it. This seems fair. I assume it can be accommodated. What else? Secondly, I insist that Kevin continues on the board following the restructuring. His learning experience shouldn't end with him being entirely sidelined. I hesitated, as having Kevin in any leadership role seemed risky given his past performance, but this appears to be significant for my father. He can retain a board seat, however. He should not hold any executive position until the board deems him ready. This seems like a reasonable compromise. Is there anything else? Yes, the crucial point. My father spoke with authority. Prior to any vote on the CEO position, I want a comprehensive succession plan established and approved by the board, one that sets out clear standards for leadership roles and decision-making procedures moving forward. Dismissing any further doubts, this development took me aback. It turned out to be a shrewd plan, one that would safeguard Reynolds Construction from recurring predicaments in the long run. I honestly expressed my approval of it. The terms will be incorporated accordingly into the draft agreement. Hearing Dad's relief, as if this move made the larger compromise more bearable, I could sense it. Instruct Donovan's team to finalize the documents. I'll sign them tomorrow. As I ended the call, a wave of feelings enveloped me. Relief, validation, and a tinge of melancholy realizing this is how things transpired. The company was rescued, but familial bonds might forever alter. Without warning, my office door creaked open. Kevin appeared, his face seething with rage. "Are you satisfied now?" he challenged. Dad had just informed me about signing with Donovan. Maintaining composure, I replied, "It's the suitable choice for Reynolds Construction." "It's the suitable choice for Jennifer Reynolds," he retorted angrily. "It seemed you were upset that Dad preferred me over you, which led to you contriving this predicament. I did not intentionally create the structural problems at Pacific Heights, nor forge the emails where you directed Chen to take shortcuts. I definitely didn't notify Channel 8 about potential safety issues." Kevin's expression changed slightly upon hearing about the media leak. "Fascinating," he said, his voice softer now. "You've harbored ambitions to run this company since our childhood," he stated, remembering my youthful enthusiasm and close association with him on job sites, working late at the office and showing my dedication. "That's called effort, Kevin. Perhaps you should give it a go." His laugh was tinged with bitterness. "You think I don't work? You think it's simple to manage relationships that secure half our contracts? As you toil with numbers in your office, I engage clients over meals, play golf with investors, ensuring transactions continue flowing." "Indeed," I conceded, catching him off guard. "Your people skills and connections are priceless for Reynolds Construction. However, they don't make you fit to manage a billion-dollar firm with intricate operations and numerous staff. So, where do we go from here? You take charge while I become sidelined?" The raw pain in his tone made me hesitate. Beneath the air of arrogance and privilege, Kevin was still my brother. Still the kid who trailed behind on construction sites, bombarding me with endless queries about bulldozers and cranes. "No," I said softly. "Father ensured you stay on the board. You'll still have a say in the company's path. If you're open to truly understanding the practical aspects of the business, not just delegating them, there could be a possibility for a return to an executive position in the future. This surprised you, correct? Would you back that?" "If you prove yourself worthy, definitely. My point is, positions should be earned through proven abilities, not inherited as an entitlement." "You seem thoughtful considering this. So, are you to be selected as CEO by the board?" "Yes, most likely. But even that would necessitate a formal presentation of qualifications and vision. Nothing is being given to me either." Kevin wandered towards the window, gazing at the Portland skyline. The same view I ponder over each morning. Many buildings in this skyline once displayed the Reynolds Construction logo during construction. He softly admitted, seemingly speaking to himself, "I genuinely believed I could handle it, that if given the opportunity, I could take charge." "You might have succeeded with adequate preparation." I accompanied him to the window, "but not by taking shortcuts or concealing issues. That's not leadership, Kevin. That's self-protection." He nodded slowly, giving a reluctant agreement. "Then what about Pacific Heights? It seems on the verge of collapse." "We rectify it," I stated plainly, comprehensively this time with full transparency and all necessary resources. "The Donovan investment will supply the capital we need. And the media? We should tackle the issue beforehand. Declare that regular engineering assessments uncovered possible concerns, and we're actively dealing with them to ensure top-tier safety standards. No accusations, no blame, just responsible corporate action." Kevin cast a glance at me with a hint of admiration. "It seems you've thought of everything, haven't you?" I smiled slightly. "That's what I'm here for. Always been our routine." A knock on the door interrupted us. Standing there was Sarah, looking apologetic. "Pardon the intrusion, but Michael Donovan is on line 1. He said it was urgent." I nodded my thanks and walked towards my desk. Kevin stayed by the window, evidently unwilling to depart during the call. "Michael," I responded, placing the phone on speaker as a gesture of kindness to Kevin. "I was moments away from calling you. My father has agreed to the investment terms, albeit with some minor conditions we should discuss." "Good news," Michael answered tersely. "However, there's an issue that requires immediate attention. The Pacific Heights situation has intensified. It appears a structural engineer who performed a recent assessment shared his findings with an acquaintance at the building department. They're sending inspectors to the site this afternoon." My stomach sank. Government inspections could lead to official reports, possible citations, fines, or legal consequences. I inquired about this matter. "One of our contacts is on the city advisory board." The response came. He received a warning from someone within the department. Michael took a moment before speaking. "Jennifer, this alters the risk associated with our investment. We must discuss amendments to the terms." Kevin's complexion paled. Potential inspections of a project with known structural flaws that he had essentially approved might lead to personal legal troubles for him. I get it, I replied to Michael. Let's convene this afternoon to discuss the revisions. Until then, we need to prepare for the inspection and strategize our response. 3 o'clock at our office, I suggested. I'll be there. After hanging up, I faced Kevin. This underscores the importance of transparency from the outset. Problems don't vanish when we choose to overlook them, he acknowledged, a somberness in his demeanor. What's our next step? We initially contact our legal team. Then we reach out to the Pacific Heights site manager to ensure they are ready for the inspection. Following that, we draft a statement acknowledging our review of structural issues and commitment to resolving any identified problems. Kevin inquired about his role. It was a reasonable question, demonstrating more self-awareness than I anticipated from him. You have a better grasp of the project details than anyone else, I replied. Collaborate with our legal team to prepare a comprehensive timeline of decisions and changes. Openness now is our strongest protection against potential future issues. Kevin stood up, nodding in agreement. I can manage that. Before leaving, he stopped at the door. I apologize, Jen. Not for aspiring to be CEO. I still believe I could have developed into the role. But for the shortcuts, for not listening to the engineers, that was arrogant. It was perhaps the first sincere apology I'd ever received from him. I'll fix it with you, I repeated, together. Following his departure, I remained seated at my desk, the burden of the day's events pressing down on me. The course ahead was now more defined, yet not simplified. Government inspections, media inquiries, investment terms for renegotiation, a board to restructure, a company to save. However, for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of optimism, not because of the likelihood of becoming CEO, though that validation held more importance than I wished to acknowledge, but because Reynolds Construction could potentially emerge from this crisis more robust, transparent, and effectively governed. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Let's talk before your meeting with Donovan. Come over at 2. I replied in agreement and started preparing for what would undoubtedly be a critical afternoon. The ensuing hours would decide not only my future with Reynolds Construction, but the company's very fate. And I was prepared. Arriving at Dad's house at 2 p.m., it felt unusually tranquil. The caretaker informed me he was waiting in the garden, his preferred thought spot, where he typically withdrew when confronted with tough decisions. I discovered him seated on a stone bench under the Japanese maple tree he'd planted at my birth, its crimson leaves reflecting the afternoon sun. He remarked that I resembled my mother, sharing her determined gait when she was about to persuade someone. I took a seat next to him, the familiar aroma of his cologne blending with the garden's natural scent. Have I altered your perspective? He offered a faint smile. You've compelled me to confront things I'd been evading. He indicated a folder on the bench between us. After spending the morning scrutinizing every document from Chen, I summoned our independent engineers for a second opinion regarding the findings. So, you were correct. The discrepancies in the Pacific Heights admissions appeared distressing to him. The structural problems at Pacific Heights are indeed significant and genuine. Kevin's instructions to circumvent procedures misrepresented facts. Everything is clear as day. I chose to let him carry on without saying, I told you so. He confessed his thoughts about choosing Kevin, surprising me with his frankness. It wasn't solely because he's my son. That was the excuse I used. Rather, it was because he resembled me, or more accurately, the version of me he was at Kevin's age. Charismatic, daring, ready to take risks. Yes, those can be beneficial traits, I conceded, but only when tempered with wisdom. Dad interlaced his fingers. I saw myself in him and desired to believe that he would grow into the role as I did. However, there's a significant disparity. What is it? He had your mother. His voice softened, recalling her. She was my anchor, my moral compass, my reminder of reality. She kept me from my destructive impulses, compelled me to consider beyond the next opportunity. Kevin lacked that guidance. It was arguably our most sincere conversation in years. And as for me, Dad turned to face me squarely. You are what Reynolds Construction has been lacking. What it needed all along, if I'm being truthful. You possess your mother's integrity and my ambition, yet without my recklessness. The validation I long sought felt heavier than expected. So why didn't you choose me initially? Because I'm an old man with age-old prejudices I was reluctant to acknowledge even to myself. He sighed. Additionally, I worried about Kevin, about his future without the company for support. That's not my concern, I said softly. Neither is it the company's. But it is mine, he declared, straightening up as if making a decision. I have signed the term sheet with your amendments. giving Donovan Capital their share, and ensuring Reynolds Construction proper governance. A wave of relief swept over me. "Thank you," I replied. "Not so fast for thanks." His expression turned grave. "This decision will bring about substantial changes for all of us. The family's controlling interest will be reduced, and the board will be restructured. When the time comes for the new CEO to be selected, likely you, both Kevin and I must concede to that decision." "Can you manage that?" I inquired, my question lingering between us. "Can you really accept me leading the company you created?" His eyes, mirroring mine, held steady. "I established the base, Jennifer. You've been constructing the main structure for years now. It's past time for me to acknowledge that." The words brought a sense of healing to a wound within me that I hadn't realized was still raw, not entirely, but enough. "What about Kevin?" I queried. His expression darkened. "He's not handling this well." When I informed him this morning that I was signing with Donovan, he stormed off, stating he needed to attend to certain matters. A hint of worry crept into his tone, and I confided my concerns. Under pressure and distressed, Kevin can be unpredictable. "Has he reached out since?" He shook his head. "No, but we have more pressing issues at hand. The building inspectors are currently at Pacific Heights." Michael phoned to indicate that significant news was imminent. "What news?" "Seemingly everything. Structural problems, leadership transitions, and the Donovan investment. It appears someone has spoken to the Portland Business Journal, who plan to publish a story about it this afternoon." My thoughts started racing. A premature public disclosure could undermine confidence in Reynolds' construction. "We need to take action first," I suggested, rising up. "Let's release a statement confirming the structural issues, review at Pacific Heights our proactive measures for resolving any problems, present the Donovan investment as a strategic growth alliance, make it clear that these are indicators of sound corporate management, not crisis management." Dad nodded, with a hint of pride in his eyes, already thinking like a CEO. "I've had practice," I responded with a small smile. "I'll go to the office to organize the response. You should join me. The team should display a unified stance to him." He rose, dismissively swiping at non-existent dirt on his trousers. "Let me get ready first. And Jennifer." "Yes?" "Regardless of what transpires subsequently, I want you to understand my pride in you. Not solely for your work alongside Reynolds, but for summoning the courage to stand firm, even against me." These sentiments took me aback, feelings suddenly rising unbidden. "Thank you, Dad. That means more than words can express." By the time we arrived at Reynolds' construction headquarters, the predicament had spiraled beyond what either of us expected. The lobby pulsed with unease. Staff huddled in small groups, their chatter ceasing as we entered. Linda intercepted us at the elevator, her customary serene expression lined with worry. "Thank goodness you're here. It's pandemonium." "What occurred?" I inquired as we stepped into the elevator. "Kevin did," she replied somberly. "An impromptu staff meeting was called an hour ago, during which it was announced that the company was being sold to external parties, hinting at a hostile takeover and indicating that half the staff might be let go once Donovan takes charge." My stomach sank. "That's utterly false, but he's the CEO, so everyone believes him." Afterward, he departed, stating he was handling remaining matters. Immediately following, panic ensued. My father's complexion paled, and his whereabouts are unknown. He isn't responding to calls. The elevator doors parted, revealing the executive floor. Not only that, but the Portland Business Journal has published their story online. It brings up the Pacific Heights structural issues, Kevin's role in concealing them, and an imminent leadership transition at Reynolds. We've stepped into a tempest. The executive suite was in chaos, phones ringing nonstop, team leaders demanding explanations, the PR department struggling to create a response. "Conference room now," I instructed Linda. "Gather the executive team, PR, and legal departments. We require a unified reaction to this situation." Dad looked at me with worry and asked about Kevin. I suggested handling the company's response while he tried contacting him to ensure his well-being. Over the next hour, we faced strategic choices and crisis management. After assembling the executive team, I clarified the situation and our actions. "Firstly, let's establish what is true and what isn't," I stated. "Reynolds Construction is not being sold. Donovan Capital is investing for a minority share. No job cuts are planned, but rather, the capital will support operation growth." The room visibly relaxed as tensions eased. "Secondly, it's confirmed that there are structural issues at Pacific Heights which we are addressing promptly. Building inspectors are currently on site, and we're working closely with them. Ensuring the project's completion in a safe manner while maintaining top-tier quality is our primary focus. I acknowledged our PR director. We require a detailed statement that addresses both the investment and the Pacific Heights predicament. Position this as Reynolds Construction taking preemptive actions to prioritize quality, safety, and future expansion. Highlight continuity and stability. Regarding the CEO matter, it was brought up in the article about a shift in leadership. I cast a glance at Linda, who signaled her approval. As scheduled, my father is moving forward with his retirement. In our revised management framework, the board will select the next CEO based on suitable qualifications and a vision for the company. Until a decision is reached, I'll be assuming the role of acting CEO to maintain consistency during this transition. The revelation was greeted with noticeable relief from most attendees. It confirmed their initial assumption about the appropriate direction we should take. Regarding Kevin, our HR director posed the question on everyone's mind. What's his current position? His executive role, however, is yet to be decided during the restructuring phase. As it stands, he remains a substantial shareholder and board member. Intrigue filled the air as my phone chimed with a text from Dad. Unable to reach Kevin. His assistant reported that he took documents from his office and left, claiming he had to address issues. A wave of apprehension washed over me. With access to confidential company data, what could Kevin be up to? The answer came 20 minutes later during our finalization of the public statement when my phone rang. Michael Donovan flashed on the screen. Jennifer, he stated bluntly, there's a situation. Your brother just dropped by with a rival proposal. A shiver ran down my spine. What kind of proposal was this? He's planning to sell his stake in Reynolds Construction, approximately 15%, to our primary rival, Sullivan Development. He argues this move would grant them sufficient power, along with certain board members he refers to as loyal to him, to thwart our investment and any leadership transitions. Sullivan Development, a company notorious for aggressive strategies and cost-cutting measures, is the kind of enterprise that would likely embrace Kevin's business style. I questioned whether he had the legal right to do this, thinking quickly. Legally, possibly. It depends on your shareholder agreement terms. However, it could lead to a corporate governance crisis and potentially spark a battle for control of the company via proxy fight. I need to consult with our legal team. I'll call you back. Upon ending the call, I promptly summoned our general counsel, filling her in on the situation. Her facial expression became increasingly somber as I continued speaking. The shareholder agreement includes a right of first refusal provision, she verified after checking her records. This means that if Kevin intends to sell his stocks, he must initially offer them to the existing shareholders, which are you and your father. However, if he's merely using this as a tactic to impede the Donovan deal, we should challenge him. I concurred. Understood. The documentation is complete. If Kevin wants to sell his stocks, we will purchase them. All of them, Dad stated as we delved into the legal specifics. As we were discussing, he arrived looking anxious. Kevin is not at his residence. His neighbor mentioned seeing him leave with luggage this morning. He's at Sullivan Development, I informed them, revealing what Michael had disclosed, attempting to sell his stocks to impede our deal with Donovan. Dad visibly sagged, the last act of betrayal affecting him deeply. Could he destroy the company out of spite? Not if we prevent it, I declared resolutely. We have right of first refusal on his stocks. If he's sincere about selling, we'll buy him off. But with what funds? We were compelled to involve Donovan due to our lack of sufficient liquid assets to purchase Kevin's shares at their market value. This prompted us to renegotiate terms with Donovan. I reasoned, let's alter the deal structure. They invest the same amount, but own a smaller percentage. Utilize the remaining funds to acquire Kevin's shares, thereby eliminating the potential danger permanently. Dad regarded me with unexpected respect. Can you pull this off? I can. The ensuing hours were a flurry of negotiations, legal consultations, and strategic moves. Michael showed openness towards the revised deal structure. He recognized the merit in removing Kevin as a potential troublemaker from the equation. Our legal team drafted the necessary documentation for both Donovan's investment and the prospective share buyout. By early evening, we had a well-structured plan and a statement ready for public release. Building inspectors concluded their evaluation of Pacific Heights, identifying structural concerns but lauding Reynolds' construction for its forward transparency and dedication to repairs. Although not ideal, it was manageable. However, one crucial element was absent: Kevin himself. In synchrony, the elevator doors slid open, and he entered the executive floor, disheveled with his customary sheen missing. his eyes displaying a combative yet pleading expression. "Family meeting in the conference room," he bellowed. "Immediately." Dad and I exchanged glances before we followed him. It was prudent to handle this matter privately rather than stir up additional turbulence among the staff. Kevin closed the conference room door behind us, dropping a folder onto the table. The offer from Sullivan for my shares, 15% above market value. If signed today, announced tomorrow, our agreement with Donovan would be terminated. I opened the folder, skimming through the terms, which matched Michael's description perfectly. An obvious ploy to hinder our reorganization and keep Kevin in his position was Dad's disheartened response, siding with Sullivan out of spite towards us. "Is this your brilliant idea?" Dad questioned. "It's business," Kevin retorted. "Weren't you the one who always told Jennifer to make logical decisions, not emotional ones?" I countered. "This isn't logical," I added calmly. "You're trading long-term value for short-term profit and causing unnecessary chaos." "I'm defending my interests," Kevin asserted. "Sullivan values what I bring to the table. They're offering me an executive vice president position once they acquire influence over Reynolds." Dad disagreed, shaking his head. "They're using you as a means to access our projects, clients, and proprietary methods. Once they get what they want, they'll discard you." Kevin hesitated, questioning Dad's knowledge. "You aren't certain of that," I stated, pushing another file across the table. "The legal team's response to Sullivan's offer gives us the initial right to buy your shares at the same price as Sullivan is offering." This caught Kevin off guard, who didn't expect this reaction. He responded by stating he doesn't have that kind of money. "The Donovan deal has been restructured." And I clarified we are maintaining the investment amount but with a smaller percentage stake. "The excess will be used to buy you out entirely." As Kevin read through the document, it became clear how this affected him. He inquired if this meant he was being completely forced out. Dad corrected that it's not a force out, but a buyout at a premium, allowing Kevin to get his money and freeing us from potential corporate sabotage. This seemed to take the fight out of Kevin, leaving him with a desolate resignation. He questioned what he would do now, having to leave the family business. This was the first time I felt empathy for my brother. Under the veneer of arrogance and self-importance lay someone who'd anchored his entire identity to Reynolds Construction. Not out of love for the work as I did, but because it was the only path he had ever contemplated. "Take the money," I whispered, "and find what truly satisfies you." He hadn't loved construction. It was the status, the connections, the social aspects that held his interest. The actual projects, details, and responsibilities were burdens, not passions to him. Caught off guard by my observation, he looked up. "And if construction is all you know," intervened Dad, "it's not. You possess genuine talents, Kevin, your ability to build relationships, to spot opportunities overlooked by others, but you need to utilize them appropriately, not force yourself into a role that doesn't suit you." Silent for a moment, the weight of his choice evident in his stance, Kevin eventually picked up a pen. He specified 3 requirements, he stated, his tone hinting more fatigue than frustration now. "What are they?" I inquired. Initially, the press statement should imply that I voluntarily sought other prospects instead of being compelled to leave. "That's a reasonable demand for someone conscious about maintaining dignity," he explained. "I accept that. Second, I need health insurance coverage for a year to plan my future moves." Dad nodded in agreement. "That can be arranged." He continued, hesitating slightly. "Thirdly, I asked for the Aspen property not as part of the share buyout, but as a sanctuary where I can reorganize myself. That place holds special significance for me and is seldom utilized by either of you," he added pointedly. Dad and I shared a glance. The Aspen property had long served as our family vacation home, yet his statement held truth. "Agreed." Dad consented, adding, "However, once you sign this document, it's binding. No second thoughts, no attempts to disrupt Reynolds Construction or its relationships." Kevin grasped the pen, hesitating over his signature. He had thought he could manage the company, that given enough time, he'd find a way. "Indeed, I suspected as much," I replied. "However, Reynolds Construction requires more than goodwill. It demands seasoned leadership with a verified history of achievements." With a firm scribble, he handed the documents to me. "Congratulations, CEO Reynolds. Now don't botch it up." Despite the circumstances, I couldn't help but smile slightly at his typical frankness. "I won't," I assured him. As Kevin exited the conference room for the last time as a Reynolds Construction executive, Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "Prepared?" he inquired softly. "For this?" he asked quietly. Am I truly prepared? Pondering the path that led me here, the decade and a half of demonstrating my worth, the recent struggles for what was rightfully mine, the looming obstacles with Pacific Heights, the Donovan, forming partnerships, and restoring company spirit. I've been prepared for 15 years, I responded. The issue is, are you ready to let me take charge? Dad gently squeezed my shoulder. Yes, I think so. At last. 2 weeks later, I found myself at the podium in Reynolds Construction's main lobby, addressing the entire company for the first time as the new CEO. The board vote had been consensus. Even Dad's support, making the transition smoother than I had dared imagine. Reynolds Construction now stands at a critical juncture in its history. I commenced, gazing upon the faces of people who have built their careers parallel to mine. The trials we have recently faced have tested us. Yet they have also exposed our strengths, our resilience, our dedication to quality, and our integrity. I detailed the upcoming plan, which involves the reconstruction of Pacific Heights under fresh project leadership. A collaborative venture with Donovan Capital for our transition into eco-friendly construction practices, and modifications to our governance structure. These adjustments will facilitate decisions grounded in merit rather than emotion or tradition. Some have inquired about Kevin's departure. I acknowledge this concern and directly address the speculation. He's choosing to explore options beyond the construction sector, with the family's complete backing. Change can be challenging, particularly within a family business. However, it can also be essential for development, be it personal or professional. As I wrapped up my speech, applause filled the room, and I noticed Dad's gaze from the front row. His look conveyed something I'd yearned for without fully recognizing it. Not just pride, but respect. The respect of perceiving me distinctively, not as his daughter who required safeguarding or direction, but as a leader who had merited my position through demonstrated proficiency and unyielding values. In the evening, while I was in my new office, formerly my father's, scrutinizing the revised Pacific Heights repair strategies, there was a rap at the door. Enter, I bid, presuming Linda or one of the project managers would enter with a query. Instead, it was him, holding 2 glasses and a bottle of the single malt scotch he saved for noteworthy events. I thought this achievement warranted an appropriate cheers, he said, placing the glasses and pouring a finger into each. This moment called for a toast, he remarked, sitting down opposite me. Your mother would have been pleased today. I accepted the drink, the amber liquid reflecting light from the window. I hope so. She would have, he affirmed. She always saw you more discerningly than I did. That girl had steel in her backbone, she used to say. She'll create something extraordinary unless hindered. The recollection of my mother's subtle insight brought a smile to my face. Did I hinder you? My father pondered this, swirling his scotch contemplatively. Unintentionally, but often our blind spots are deepest with those closest. I saw your capability, your intellect, your ambition. What I failed to notice was your vision, your knack for seeing not just what Reynolds' construction is, but what it could transform into. Now, I eagerly anticipate witnessing the manifestation of your vision. He raised his glass. To Jennifer Reynolds, CEO, may you lead with the wisdom I occasionally lacked. We toasted, marking a transition, both professional and personal. A change in our perception of each other, and significantly, in how I perceive myself. The journey ahead wouldn't be simple. Pacific Heights would need substantial investment and careful supervision to overcome its structural problems. The Donovan partnership could introduce fresh perspectives and demands for our board. Rivals like Sullivan would scrutinize any signs of leadership vulnerability during our transition. For the first time in my professional life, I won't have to confront internal opposition while addressing external problems. I now possess the title that corresponds to the burden I've shouldered for years. The board is designed to uphold merit-based judgments instead of family politics. Knowing I hadn't inherited anything but earned everything through determination, strategic planning, and an unyielding dedication to what was right, even when it was tough, gave me immense satisfaction. As Dad departed, leaving me to my duties, I gazed out the window at the Portland skyline, its silhouette contrasting against the setting sun. Many buildings under that skyline bore the Reynolds Construction emblem, physical testaments to our company's and family's accomplishments, despite their flaws and disagreements. It was now my time to sculpt that skyline, construct edifices that would endure past the dissipation of boardroom squabbles and domestic strife. No longer as Richard Reynolds' daughter, but as Jennifer Reynolds, CEO, a figure who demonstrated that genuine power is not bestowed or seized, it's earned. Coming up, there are 2 more compelling tales right in front of you on your screen. If this one resonated with you, you won't want to miss these either. Just click and explore them.